All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for being here. I got a excellent show coming up for you guys today. Hope you guys are very excited. So look, today we're going to be talking about this anti-Semitic hate crime that took place in Jackson, Mississippi. Apparently a young man, 19 years old, went to Catholic school, went to this synagogue in Jackson, Mississippi, the oldest synagogue in the state. He brought with him rather, a gas canister. He goes inside, trespasses into the building, and then begins to pour gasoline throughout the building, through the library, the administrative offices, lights it on fire, and sets the synagogue ablaze. So we're going to be talking about this story. And surprisingly, I guess before we get into it, this story has not garnered as much attention as I would have anticipated. I mean, think about it. Young, white, Christian guy from the South, comes from this affluent family, gets radicalized by anti-Semitism, and then he goes and burns down the oldest synagogue in the state of Mississippi. And it's actually a historically relevant synagogue because it was attacked by the KKK in 1967. It was bombed. So this synagogue has real historical significance. So we're going to be talking about this, but it's just interesting why this story hasn't gotten that much traction. I would have assumed it would, but I guess I don't know. Maybe it's not as relevant as some of the other stuff that's going on in the news with Venezuela and Iran. So we'll see. We'll see how this story unfolds, if it picks up more traction in the coming days. There was a piece on it in the New York Times, and CNN also picked up on it. But beyond that, it hasn't really gotten much traction on social media. So there's that. But I guess with that being said, I do just want to say something briefly, and then we'll get into the news. It is important now that it's 2026, after everything that transpired last year, and I actually said this in my last video, you guys have to be on guard with the information that you are consuming. And what I mean is, you have to be discerning. A lot of the information and a lot of the narratives that we are receiving now, it's just pure propaganda. And what I mean is, and Nick laid this out beautifully on a stream 2 nights ago, what we're seeing here is we are being fed misinformation and disinformation from these Zionist provocateurs, or these Zionist outlets and publications. And what I mean is, think about what happened in Iran. You had conflicting reports come out. Some said there was 600 deaths. Some said there was 2,000 deaths, 2,500 deaths. That's what Reuters said. But then you have CBS come out and say there was 12,000 to 20,000 deaths, and that the rest of these mainstream outlets were undercounting. And of course, the reason why they are telling you the death toll is so high is to shock you, is to put you on alarm. It's to say, oh my God, there's so much craziness going on in Iran. We got to go in there and save them and rescue them. It's this atrocity propaganda. It's the same thing with Venezuela. They're saying they're narco-terrorists. They are killing Americans. We have a homelessness crisis in this country. We have an opioid crisis in this country. You go to Kensington, you go to Skid Row, you go to Detroit, there's crackheads everywhere, lining the streets, living in tents, on their last breath. But we don't hear anything about that. And all the overdosing that takes place in this country every single year. Moreover, besides the domestic front, if you even look at the geopolitical aspect of this, most of the drugs that are being trafficked into this country, the heroin, the meth, the fentanyl, the cocaine, over 90% of that stuff comes through Mexico. Cocaine production mostly takes place in South America, specifically Colombia, but it is trafficked through Mexico, or it comes through Ecuador and Panama, and it comes through the Caribbean. But by and large, most of the drugs that enter this country are coming through Mexico. The fentanyl, the heroin, the meth, the cocaine. It's not coming from Venezuela. But that's the pretext. And that's how it is. It's manufacturing consent. And right now, we're in this civil war. I mean, we are in a war, in a sense, against the Zionist establishment. That's what it is. The Zionist industrial complex. And because of that, they are going to crank up the atrocity propaganda. They're going to crank up the information warfare. So just be keen. Just be very aware of that. And with everything that took place last year, just think about it. Charlie Kirk, the Tucker cost. And the Tucker cost I'm referring to is the fallout after Tucker and Nick Fuentes had their interview. Think about everything that happened then. All these bots coming out on Twitter. You see X the week after this event or the week after that interview? People were saying he's a Nazi, he's Hitler, and these are accounts with like 15 followers. Like, where are these people coming from? Or these small accounts with like 1,000 or 2,000 followers, these botted up accounts. Hitler's Tucker Carlson is Hitler, he's a Nazi, he's the Antichrist, he's Satan, all these weird things. And it's like, where is all this coming from? So just be aware, there are bot farms out there. That is the thing, that is true. And you just got to be weary of this. You have to be weary of this. There's a lot of propaganda. And, there was a Charlie Kirk assassination. There was, the Signal chat leaks that took place last year. There was all the fallout with America Fest, the Epstein file cover-up, and all the Trump surrogates trying to defend Trump for doing this, for trying to cover up the Epstein file. It's just so much lying. It's a lot of lying. That's all I have to say about that. It is so much lying. And you cannot trust anything you see. You cannot take it at face value. You have to dig. You have to be skeptical. I'm sorry. I know it's tiresome. It shouldn't be this way. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't be this constant stream of propaganda and lies that we have to sift through to get at some grain of truth. It shouldn't be that way. But that's what it is in 2026 on X. You want a completely uncensored, unfiltered media ecosystem. This is what it looks like. Chaos. For better or worse, you got to take the good with the bad. So that's all I have to say about that. Just be aware. Pay attention to the sources. Pay attention to who is telling you something. And consider their backing. Consider their biases. Consider the people sponsoring them. That's all I have to say. But with that being said, I want to get into this story. I want to talk about what took place last week, or I guess Saturday. Technically, that's last week, but we'll just say a few days ago. So 5 days ago, on Saturday, January 10th, at around 4:50 in the morning, a young man by the name of Stephen Spencer Pittman is alleged to have burned down a synagogue in Jackson, Mississippi, one of the oldest synagogues in the state. It was established in 1860, and 107 years later, it was attacked and bombed by the KKK. And then they had to rebuild it, revamp it, all these sorts of things. So this gentleman, and I guess we'll go through some of the details here, and then we'll read the affidavit, because the affidavit is the best source that we have about what took place here. There's a lot of reports, ABC 17, CNN, New York Times, some of the local journals. There's a lot of information coming out about this story, and we don't have all the details yet. It's not fully fleshed out, but we have enough of the details to understand what happened, or to build a coherent story about what took place. And there's a prevailing theory, and this theory has the most support for it right now. So this is the theory. At 12:52 a.m., this young gentleman by the name of Stephen Spencer Pittman posts this anti-Semitic meme on his Instagram page. And the reason why this is relevant is because this piece of it, even though it seems minute right now, in retrospect, you'll understand why this piece is important. This anti-Semitic meme that he posted on his Instagram page, because it was a major divergence from most of the content that he posted on his Twitter page. And this kind of lends into this idea of social media radicalization, how somebody who is a regular Christian conservative becomes an anti-Semite, and how the algorithm and how social media plays into that. So anyways, It seems like an unimportant detail, but it is an important one. So 12:52 a.m., he posts this anti-Semitic meme on his Twitter page, or on his Instagram page. About an hour and a half later, around 2:30 in the morning, he goes to his truck, he gets inside, drives to the gas station, goes to the clerk, he buys himself a gas canister, and then while he's at the gas station, he removes his license plate from his truck, gets back inside his truck, drives to the synagogue, parks his car, gets out, takes an axe, and breaks the side window, or one of the side windows, before entering the mosque. He goes inside after breaking the window. He starts navigating the building. He goes to the administrative offices, goes to the library, starts dumping out gasoline on the furniture, gasoline on the books, gasoline on the chairs, and then he lights it on fire. Now, here's the interesting thing. While this is taking place, while he is in the act of committing this crime, he is texting his father. And in the affidavit, there are screenshots, or rather pictures, of the text message chat with his father that match with the time that this crime was being carried out. As a matter of fact, well, I don't have it pulled up here, but as a matter of fact, I guess we'll just say this. What the text messages said were, there's a furnace in the back. He took a photo of the exterior of the building. He told his dad that he had his hoodie on. He told his dad he had his plates off. And then he told his dad that they have some of the best cameras. They're $100,000 each. So he's literally describing the crime scene to his dad while he's carrying out the crime. He's telling him what he's wearing. He's saying he has a hoodie on. He's saying he took his license plate off. And he's also taking photos of the interior and the exterior of the crime scene. And meanwhile, this is taking place, his dad is begging him to come back home. He's pleading with him. That's what the affidavit says. And rather than abiding by his dad's requests, he stays inside. He continues to text back and forth with him. And instead he says, I did my research and I was due for a home run. That's what he says over the phone. So he admits to committing the crime. He leaves circumstantial evidence through these text message chats. He's describing what he's wearing, and then he tells his dad that it was premeditated, that it was planned. He took off his license plate. He said he did his research. So he's literally volunteering this information to his father while he's in the act of carrying out this crime. So anyways, after this happens, after he sets the building on fire, he gets in his car, and this is the prevailing theory. He gets in his car, he goes back home, and he arrives back in the early hours of the morning, maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And this is when he's confronted by his father. And his dad is asking him, where were you? What happened? Why did you do this? And so on and so forth. And he tells his dad that he attacked this building. And he literally admits everything to his dad in person, verbatim. That's what the affidavit says. And then he tells his dad that he finally got them. And in the report, it says that he was laughing while he was having this conversation with his father. And the reason we know this is because his dad told the FBI what his son said during the conversation. So his dad is he gives personal testimony on the events that took place. So after this altercation that he gets into with his dad, he gets back in his car and then he drives to the hospital to go receive care for the burns on his face, on his arms, on his legs. And he posts an image of his face and his arm burned to Snapchat. And it's like this kid wants attention. He wants to attract attention, which I think is so weird. You would think if you commit a crime of this magnitude, you would want to, hide it. But he was very open about it. It's almost like he wanted attention for it, which is very strange. And we'll get back to that in a second. But he goes to the hospital. He's receiving care. While he's there, his dad calls the FBI. His dad calls the authorities. And he tells them what hospital his son is at, presumably because he has him on Life 360. And then the FBI goes to the hospital. And then that's where they arrest him and then interview him. So this is the story. That's basically what happened. And to give you a brief summary, absent of all those details, this kid 19 years old, leaves his house at 2:30, goes to the gas station, buys a gas canister. While he's there, he takes a license plate off. Then he drives to the synagogue. He breaks into the building by smashing one of the windows, goes inside, throws the gas canister through the window, hops in, starts pouring gasoline through the library, the administrative offices, and other rooms throughout the synagogue, sets it on fire. He leaves the building, gets back in his car, drives home, gets into a confrontation with his dad where he admits to what he did. Then he gets back in his car to receive care for his burn marks. And then he goes to the hospital. And then while he's at the hospital, his dad calls the FBI and the authorities. The authorities go to the hospital and they arrest him. So that's the brief synopsis of what took place. And we'll read briefly here from the affidavit so you guys have a more accurate sense of what took place. And the affidavit's not that long. It's pretty short. It's only a few paragraphs. So just bear with me here. Here we go. And I'm not going to read all of it. I'm only going to read a few paragraphs here so you guys can get a general sense of what took place. So this is what it says. By the way, this is signed by a U.S. magistrate judge, and it is also signed by an FBI special agent, Nicholas Amiano. So all of this is verified. It says here, on January 10th, 2026, the Jackson Fire Department responded to a fire at 5315 Old Canton Road, Jackson, Mississippi, which is a building or property at which both the Beth Israel Congregation and the ISJL are located. The fire resulted in extensive damage to a significant portion of the building and rendered it inoperable for an indefinite period of time, as depicted below. A review of the CCTV footage showed the fire was started by an individual inside the building in the early morning hours of January 10, 2026. A hooded individual can be seen walking in the interior of the building, pouring contents from what appeared to be a gas container as depicted below. On January 10, 2026, Pittman's father, SP, contacted the FBI and advised his son confessed to setting the building on fire. So his father tells the FBI that his son told him that he was the one who carried out the crime. This confession was further corroborated by Life 360 map data that SP had from Pittman's phone. Pittman's text messages to his father during the early morning of January 10, 2026, and burns on Pittman's body. In the early morning of January 10, 2026, Life 360 map data from the phone showed that Pittman traveled from his residence in Madison County, stopped briefly at Max Gas in Ridgeland, Mississippi, and then went to the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building. While there, Pittman texted SP is his father, a photo of the rear of the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building with messages, "There's a furnace in the back. By the way, my plate is off. Hoodie is on." And, quote, "They have the best cameras." Over text messages, SP pleaded for his son to return home. Pittman replied back by saying he was due for a home run and I did my research. That's what he said to his father on the text messages when his dad asked him to come back home. He texted his dad, who was begging him to come back home, "I was due for a home run and I did my research." Once again, it's like not serious. It says here, in the morning of January 10th, 2026, Pittman texted his family and said, "Y'all got to get this number for right now. It's Spencer. Or y'all got to text this number for right now." Other phone MIA, not coming back, going to Apple Store today, indicating he had lost his phone during the commission of the crime. He also texted to get my Apple account logged in on this one. During daylight on January 10, 2026, SP once again is his father, observed burns on Pittman's ankles, hands, and face. SP confronted Pittman about what happened during the early morning on January 10th, 2026, and Pittman told his father he broke a window of the Beth Israel Congregation, went inside and lit it on fire. Pittman laughed as he told his father what he did and finally said he finally got them. And this is straight from the affidavit. During the evening of January 10th, 2026, the FBI, Jackson Fire Department, and Hinds County Sheriff Office interviewed Pittman. During the interview, Pittman provided the following information. He admitted to starting a fire inside the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building, which he referred to as the, quote, Synagogue of Satan. That's also an important detail. Pittman said on the way to the crime, he stopped at Max Gas to purchase the gas he used for the fire, took his license plate off at the gas station, broke a window out of the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building with an axe, poured gas inside the building, and used a torch lighter to start the fire. So this is what he's telling to the authorities while he's being interviewed at the hospital, or interrogated rather. Pittman believed he left the torchlighter at the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building and that he caught himself on fire during the act. Pittman indicated his primary cell phone was inside the Beth Israel Congregation / ISJL building. From the scene of the fire, the FBI was able to recover a burned cell phone believed to be Pittman's. The FBI also recovered a hand torch found at the scene by a member of the congregation. And I guess that's all we have to go over. There's only 2 more paragraphs, a lot of extra information. So there you have it, straight from the affidavit. Now, here's what's interesting about this particular case. And this is why I wanted to talk about it. And there's a lot of important aspects to this. There's the political aspect. There's also this cultural aspect, how social media radicalizes people. We also have to talk about optics. We have to talk about strategy. And I just want to give you guys my general take on this matter and everything that happened here. But before we do that, I need to give you guys an even bigger picture of who this kid is. So this Spencer Pittman kid, this guy is a 19-year-old white kid from a Christian, Southern, conservative community. It's white, it's Southern, it's Christian, it's conservative. And this is important, and I'll tell you guys about that in a moment. So he grows up in this affluent, rich, white suburb from the South, or in the South. And I actually looked at the American Community Survey, and the median household income in Madison, Mississippi, which is where he's from, is $120,918. That's the median household income, which is 55% above the national average. So this kid comes from a wealthy family, grew up in a nice suburb. He also went to Catholic school. He went to St. Joseph's Catholic School, which is a private Catholic school in Mississippi. He was a baseball player. He was an honor roll student. And on top of that, he was put on this national team and was recognized by his college for his proficiency in athletics and his proficiency in academics. So not only was he very athletic, he was also very intelligent. He went in to college as a biology major. So this kid is intelligent. Baseball player, very intelligent, Catholic, went to private school, comes from this rich family, grew up in this affluent suburb. And let me tell you guys a bit about the South, because I personally grew up in a white Christian, conservative, Southern neighborhood. I grew up in Kingwood, Texas. And full disclosure, these kids, man, these baseball players, these varsity baseball players, these guys have it made. They have it made. They have, from the time they're born to the time they're adults, their life is one big red carpet. It's a cakewalk. And I'm not going to discredit them. I'm not going to say, oh, they don't work hard. They didn't try to become very athletic. They didn't try to become, these standout athletes or whatever. No, of course, I'm not going to take their credit away. But what I will say is this. In these affluent white suburbs in the South that are mostly Christian and they're very conservative, it's very common for these baseball players and these, middle to middle upper class or upper middle class white kids to have a $50,000 truck before they even have a license. So these guys are 16, 17 years old with a permit, and their parents buy them a $50,000 Tacoma or Silverado or some kind of Ford F-150 in cash. And they'll have it sitting in the driveway before their kid has a license. And sometimes they'll finance it if they have really good credit. But a lot of times they'll just buy it straight up. Their parents have been saving for it since they were in middle school, or their grandparents will chip in. A lot of old money in these neighborhoods. A lot of old money. So a lot of these kids get these brand spanking new cars, these trucks. And here's the thing with these trucks. The pretext is, oh, well, you need a pickup truck because it's safer. It'll protect my kid if he gets into a crash or something like that. Or they'll say, there's a lot of storms and hurricanes in the South. I want my kid to be able to drive through the streets whenever it's raining outside, whenever the water levels are high. And it's like, okay, I can see that. But that's not generally the reason why your parents will spend $50,000 on a truck. You can go buy a cheap truck if that's the case. You can go buy a cheap $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 used truck with 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 miles on it, and it'll do the exact same thing. The reason why they buy their kids these brand new trucks is because it helps them fit into the local hierarchy. That's it. Having a pickup truck in the South, a new one, a 2024, a 2025, it signifies to your neighbors, I belong here. My family has wealth. We are a stable, successful family. It's like this status game. That's why they buy these brand new trucks. It's not for the utility. It's for what it represents. It's symbolic. So these kids get these brand new trucks before they even have a license when they're 16 or 17. That's the first piece. On top of that, a lot of these kids have parents that are alma maters from these SEC schools, like Ole Miss, like University of Oklahoma, like Oklahoma University, or OSU, or Clemson, or the University of Texas at Austin, or University A&M, or A&M. That's what I meant, A&M University, whatever. You guys get the idea. Their parents are alma maters from these football schools in the South. University of Arkansas, Louisiana State University, you get the idea. Their parents come from these notorious SEC football schools. And, they get preferred admission because their parents graduated from these schools. They get preferred admission because of legacy status. And this is even if they're not athletes. So that's the second piece of it. They get preferred admission. A lot of them go into frats. It's very common that these people go into frats. They have all kinds of social networks. A lot of them don't even have to work when they're in college. Their parents just pay for it. They don't want their poster child, their boy having to work and pay for his tuition at the same time. I did. I've been in college for 5 years. I've had to pay for my tuition for the past several years. I had to work and go to school at the same time. These kids don't have those problems. They get these brand new trucks. They have preferred admission because of legacy status. Their parents graduated from the school that they want to go to. They get into, they get all these kinds of benefits. They don't have to work. Their parents will pay for it. They have these saving plans. So there's all kinds of benefits to being a guy like Spencer. All kinds of benefits. You don't have to worry about anything. And I grew up in a neighborhood like this. And when you're a popular, athlete, everybody knows you in the school. Everybody knows you. People at other schools know you. You're popular in the district. And because of that, you have your pick of the litter when it comes to girls. And you can go to any of these parties and people will talk to you and, you can just work your way into all these house parties because everybody knows you and you're this notorious baseball player from this particular suburb, this particular school district, and everybody wants to be your friend. There's all kinds of benefits to being a guy like Steven Spencer Pittman. Social benefits, financial benefits. You get the idea. Brand new car, pick of the litter with the girls. You got this popular crew that you roll with. This kid was not like a loser, neo-Nazi, nobody. This kid had a promising future. And that's what makes this very strange. That's what makes this very peculiar. How does a kid who went to a private Catholic school, grew up in an affluent neighborhood, had deep social connections, because that's what it's like in the South. You have real community in the South. People actually talk to each other and hang out and spend time together. They go hunting, off-roading. They got dirt bikes. They go four-wheeling. You get the idea. Fishing. There's actual bonding out there with the people who grow up in the South. So this kid, baseball player, popular, affluent, intelligent, pick of the litter with the girls, strong social network, would have gotten into a good school after going to community college. How does a kid like this, with all these opportunities and a promising future, this golden boy, poster child, how is he now the prime suspect for felony arson on a synagogue? How does that happen? Because to my mind, the only thing that makes sense is being radicalized by social media. This is not cool. And in the South, there is a strong social pressure, in the South, there is a strong social pressure to be normal, to appear confident at all times. You're supposed to be Southern suave. You're supposed to have Southern charm. And so this flies in the face of his upbringing. It makes no sense. It doesn't track whatsoever. It'd be different if he was some loser, nobody, didn't have a strong social network, didn't have friends, kind of socially awkward, who spends too much time on 4chan, spends too much time on the internet, and then goes down these crazy rabbit holes and learns about all these neo-Nazi conspiracy theories. That is the kind of person who goes and burns down a synagogue to save his race, to avenge the white man, to fight back against the Jew. But those people are considered outcasts, losers, misfits. It makes sense. With a kid like Stephen Spencer Pittman, how does this happen? His friends aren't telling him to go do this. His family's not telling him to go do this. His community is not telling him to go do this. There is no social pressure in his life that is moving him in that direction. It doesn't make sense. So what is the most likely factor that pushed him towards committing this act? And to my mind, it's social media radicalization. And that's why I said that the important piece of this was the detail. And in retrospect, it seems important. It didn't seem important at the start, but in retrospect, it matters. And what I'm referring to is the part where he posted this anti-Semitic meme on his Instagram page. That's important. And all the local reports say this is a major divergence from what he usually posts on his Instagram account. It's motivational content, it's Christian content, self-improvement content, that sort of stuff. So how does this kid start posting these weird memes about Jews on his Instagram page? Where does that come from? And here's the thing. Think about the way the social media algorithm works. This kid is a conservative Catholic athlete. He's big into motivation, big into self-improvement. So it starts as be disciplined, be strong, be a soldier for God, don't be a weak man. It starts out with that. You start liking all those videos on your Instagram reels. And then it goes to something more potent. It goes to modern men are under attack. Women are not behaving the way they need to in the modern world. And then after that, it transitions to something more political, more explicit. It's the West is declining. It's Christians are under attack. It's Islam is the enemy. It's society is being feminized. Now you're getting fed content from the red pill sphere, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate. Now you're getting anti-feminist content. Now this is more, you're getting into some of the more conspiratorial stuff. The elites are behind it. They're the ones who are pushing this. They're the ones who are feminizing the West. They're the ones who are pushing, misandry throughout our society. They're the ones who are making the world hate men, hate white men. There's a kind of subtle transition that takes place here with the algorithm. It feeds you stuff that is meant to keep you trapped, meant to provoke emotions from you. And then it goes to, well, if the elites are behind it, that means the media lies. That means the global elites are pushing feminism. You're not allowed to ask certain questions about who's doing this. And at this point, now you're being fed full-on anti-Semitism. You're being fed Andrew Tate clips, Nick Fuentes clips. And, if somebody has a particular predisposition to go out and carry out a kind of crime or to be antisocial, Well, you take this anti-Semitic content plus their anti-social disposition, you bring those two things together, you've produced a criminal. You see how this works? You think anybody, any of his friends were telling him, hey, Spencer, go out there and burn down that mosque. That would be really cool. That'd be a really smart thing to do. You think his family was telling him to do that? His church was telling him to do that? Of course not. The only thing that could possibly motivate something this stupid is the social media stuff. At least that's what makes sense to me. And I'm not trying to pin this on Nick Fuentes. I'm not trying to pin this on Andrew Tate, but I'm giving you guys a general idea about how this stuff works. It could be any content creator pushing anti-Semitic content. It doesn't matter. Who knows? It could be a very obscure content creator, a very popular one. It doesn't matter. This is the way the algorithm works. It is meant to trap you. It is meant to radicalize. It is meant to bring emotions out of you. It is meant to make you feel angry or sad or paranoid, to keep you wanting more. It trains you. And this is nothing new. This is not like a new revelation, but just think about this. Think about how crazy this is. Throughout this entire thing, this kid is calling it the Synagogue of Satan when he's being interrogated by the authorities. He's laughing with his dad when his dad is asking him why the fuck he did this. He's telling his dad, I finally got them. And he's laughing about it. It says it in the affidavit. When his dad is begging him on the phone to come back home, pleading with him, he's saying, I was due for a home run. I did my research. That's concerning. How does somebody like this kid do something like this? He just threw every opportunity he had down the toilet. Getting into a good college, that's out the window. What college is going to want to recruit him now for baseball? None. His community? How are they going to feel about this? How will this affect his relationships in the community that he's from? Like I said, the community relationships in the South a lot of times are very deep. How does his church look at him? How does his family look at him? How do his friends look at him? They're not going to look at him the same. Promise you that. I mean, if this kid wants to get a job, is he even going to be able to get hired? Will he even be a viable option? He's going to be radioactive. So this kid threw away everything. This promising future. Once again, affluent, intelligent, honor roll student, athlete. Threw away all those opportunities, all these relationships for some stupid joke. He thinks it's a fucking joke. That's what's concerning. He thinks it's a joke. He thought it would be cool or based to own the Jews. Synagogue of Satan, where have you heard that before? That's common stuff to hear on social media now. There's that famous line where Candace Owens is debating Rabbi Shmuley, and she says, "You are the synagogue of Satan," or "Beware the synagogue of Satan." Maybe he saw that clip. I don't know. That's speculation. I understand. But like I said, this is something that is generally considered antisocial. This is freak behavior. This is misfit behavior. This kid is not a misfit. This kid's not a loser. This kid's probably one of the most popular guys at his school, at least when he was in Catholic school. Like I said, these athletes, these varsity athletes are the most popular people in the school generally, have their pick of the litter when it comes to the girls. And he's posting images of this on Snapchat. It's like he's leaving evidence. Like, this kid is a fucking idiot. He thinks it's a joke. And that's concerning, because what this suggests to me is that this anti-Semitism thing, it's transitioning from something that like only freaks were into, only conspirators were into. Now it's becoming mainstream. Now athletes, varsity athletes are learning about this. It's becoming normal. Everybody's becoming anti-Semitic. That to me is concerning. It was one thing when it was just the psychopaths and the freaks and the losers doing it. Now it's like normal, well-adjusted people are doing it. That's concerning. And here's the thing. What doesn't make sense with this kid, there's no political motivation here. There's no clear political, coherent, ideological factor to this, component to this. It's one thing to be a neo-Nazi. It's one thing to believe in white genocide or the Great Replacement, to have like a coherent political ideology or semi-coherent political ideology. And undergirding that is anti-Semitism. That's one thing. But this kid does not seem like he's motivated by anti-Semitism, or rather neo-Nazism, excuse me. He doesn't seem like he's motivated by neo-Nazism or some kind of white nationalist political agenda. That doesn't seem to be what's motivating this. To me, what seems to be motivating this is just this kid wanted to be cruel. He wanted to do something for attention. Because now it's more okay to hate Jews. This is not like a coherent political actor. This is some random, preppy, well-adjusted, kid who had everything handed to him, throwing it away because he thought it would be a joke to burn down a synagogue. And now he's looking at state and federal prison time if they stack his sentences. He's looking at felony arson on interstate commerce at the federal level. That's 5 years minimum. And he's looking at a first-degree arson with hate crime enhancements from the state. So the federal government and the state government are bringing charges against this kid. And what does that mean? That means that best case scenario, if this kid gets a plea deal, he's looking at 7 to 12 years. I don't see any scenario where he only gets the minimum. And the reason why is because if this kid only gets the 5-year minimum, it looks like the state does not take protecting its duty of protecting minority communities like Jews seriously. So this kid's probably going to get at least 7 years. 7 years minimum. I'd be shocked if he only got 5 years. He will be convicted. There's all this evidence. And he can't take it to trial. That'd be suicidal. He's on video. He admitted to it, to his dad, to the authorities. He took pictures of himself and posted it on Snapchat. So this kid's done. He's fried. He's fried. Taking this to trial would be absolutely suicidal. So there's no way he does that. If you take it to trial, you're looking at potentially decades in prison. The risk exposure to that is astronomical. So he'll take a plea deal. He'll get probably 7 years. And when he gets out, maybe if he's lucky, he'll get a job at his dad's construction business or at the family company. He has a safety net. These people in the South that live in these affluent neighborhoods, they have all kinds of safety nets. If your kid goes to prison, if your kid flunks out of college, ruins his life, ruins all the relationships he spent his life building, the family will take care of him, so he'll be all right. But just the sheer stupidness of this is unfathomable to me. It's just beyond stupid. There is no coherent political ideology here. And let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say there was a political ideology here. Let's say he was motivated by some coherent white nationalist belief system. Ask yourself this: how does this actually push the agenda? How does this actually push the movement? It doesn't. It does nothing but set it back, and I'll tell you why. What do you think the Jewish powers think when they see stuff like this? This is just more ammunition for them. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for them to say, hey, look at that white athlete, this Christian conservative kid from the South, this Catholic, this traditional Catholic. Look at him burning down a synagogue because he was motivated by hateful content on social media. All you're doing is giving them a pretext. You're giving them more ammunition. You're giving them an example to point to as a reason to bring back censorship on social media. Mark my words, if X ever reverts its free speech posture, if it reverses that, and it goes back to being a censorship platform or a censored platform, I can promise you a Jew will have been behind it. Moreover, you're this white, Southern, Christian conservative kid. When you go out and do something this stupid, and you're a right-winger, you make your entire demographic look bad. I'm going to just keep it real. You make all the other white guys look bad. All the other white, young, precocious, patriotic, America firsters, quasi-white nationalists, you make those guys look bad. So all you're doing is playing right into the hands of the Zionists, which is stupid. And maybe this sounds crass. It's wrong, not just because it's dumb. It's wrong because it's immoral. You shouldn't attack minorities. You shouldn't attack anybody, but you shouldn't attack minorities. You shouldn't try to intimidate communities. I am completely against terrorism of any kind. That is not okay. I don't approve of arson. I don't approve of vandalism. None of it. If you're going to beat these people, you have to beat them fair and square. If you're going to beat Zionists, you have to beat them fair and square. You're not going to take down the Jewish command structure. You're not going to take down the Zionist industrial complex by attacking. I shouldn't say attack. I should say vandalizing or burning down a synagogue. You're not going to score any long-term strategical wins doing that. If anything, you're going to set yourself back. And let me tell you this. How do you beat the Zionist industrial complex? How do you beat the Jewish command structure? Some people say it's global Jewry. They have different terms for it. The Jewish oligarchy, global elites, rootless transnational elites, whatever. There's all kinds of terms for it. Organized Jewry, global Jewry, whatever. To me, I think the most appropriate terms are the Zionist industrial complex and the Jewish command structure. And let me explain to you guys how this works, because there's a lot of misunderstandings on how this system works, how this system of control, how this system of power actually works. There's a lot of conspiracies around it. So I'll break it down for you and I'll explain it to you component by component, piece by piece. There's an important phrase that you need to keep in mind, or an important term, social capital. That is the key component to all of this, social capital. That is how Jews have so much power. And how does social capital work? What is social capital? Social capital is the sum value of all the relationships that you have. For example, if a billionaire Jew has connections to Hollywood, Wall Street, various different governments, tech, media, the sum value of all his relationships will significantly overshadow the sum value of some recent immigrants' relationships, where he knows a plumber and he knows a handyman and he knows the taco guy and he knows the person who runs the laundromat. The person who is a billionaire, who has all these important and valuable relationships, has a lot more social capital than this poor immigrant living in the ghettos of Los Angeles. And the reason why social capital is so important is because it gives you the ability to gatekeep. And that means you can prevent people from entering elite circles if they don't have the right connections. Or you can tell the people in the media, if you're a billionaire in finance, you can call them, tell the people in the media, tell the people in academia, hey, we don't want this guy in here. This guy is a problem. This guy is a threat. This guy challenges the agenda. You can gatekeep people from getting in. So in order to get into these elite circles, you need to be vetted. You need to be introduced to the right people. You need to have warm relationships. You need to shake hands with the right people. That's why social capital is so important. The word of mouth is very powerful in these circles of society. Those are the people who run society. The rich elite who gatekeep people from institutions, gatekeep them from the media, gatekeep them from the government. That is how it works. It's chess, it's power. That's why social capital is so important. And Jews have spent a long time building social capital and spreading their tentacles. That's why Jews are in media, the news media. That's why Jews are in Hollywood. That's why Jews are in academia. That's why Jews are in government. That's why Jews are in finance. That's why Jews are in tech. That's why Jews are in business. And there's Jews all across the diaspora. And how does the Jewish command structure work? And I use Jewish command structure instead of Zionist industrial complex because the Jewish command structure is more sophisticated. And the term itself describes something more broad. The Zionist industrial complex implies that it's only being done for Zionism or for Israel. But that's not necessarily the case. The Jewish command structure operates more broadly. It controls media narratives. It normalizes certain cultures. It normalizes Jewish power. It normalizes Jewish identity. It normalizes pro-Israel opinions. It normalizes the mainstream Holocaust narrative. It creates sympathy for the Jews. It creates philo-Semitism. All these publishers put out books written by Jews about the problems with the West, the problems with white people. So the Jewish command structure is more sophisticated than just being pro-Israel. It's about creating a society that is tolerant for Jews. And let me explain to you how this works, because maybe it sounds like I'm being conspiratorial. I'm not. The way this works is, it's very systematic. A billionaire Jew like Larry Ellison cannot just call up CNN and say, hey, I don't want you to hire this guy because he says things that I don't like. You can't do that. That's illegal. You can't engage in that kind of manipulation. What you can do is this. You can gatekeep the credentials behind programs, behind initiatives, behind organizations, behind connections. So you can't call CNN and say, hey, I don't want you to hire that guy because he doesn't have our politics. But you can say, does he have the right credentials? Did he go through the right organizations? Is he vetted by the right people? All these sorts of things. It's more informal. Or rather, it's more formal, I guess. And this is how it works. At the nucleus of the Jewish command structure, at the nucleus of this membrane, is the billionaires, the financiers, the people with the money. We're talking about people like Bill Ackman, David Rothschild, Steven Schwartzman, Leslie Wexner. We're talking about people like Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, billionaire Jews, extremely successful and wealthy people. And what do? Well, here's what they do. They give their money to foundations, to charities, to donor-advised funds. And those charities and donor-advised funds and foundations give their money to 501c3s, to certain organizations, like Hillel Organization, like the Hasbara Alliance. And what do these organizations do? These campus organizations, these pro-Zionist organizations, what do? They recruit people on campus. They open up leadership conferences, speaking engagements, policy summits, forums. They create these organizations where they recruit Jewish students to network with other Jewish students, to become enculturated and embrace their Jewish identity, to learn about Jewish history. And then over a series of time, after this person has been a part of the right organizations, the right Jewish organizations, he's gone to the ZOA, he's gone to the World Zionist Organization, he's gone to the assemblies hosted by the World Jewish Congress, he's rubbed shoulders with the right people, he's met ambassadors, politicians, academics, think tank directors, he's gone to a leadership program, he's gone through a Jewish history course hosted by Leslie Wexner. After all this, after he has all the right credentials, after he's been groomed, after he's rubbed shoulders with the right people, then maybe he'll get offered a position at a think tank, at the Council of Foreign Relations, at the Atlantic Council, at YNAP, at the Foundation for Defending Democracies. Then he'll become a fellow, or a research associate, or a policy analyst. And then he'll go to a policy summit, then he'll go to another major speaking conference. And who is there? Who's at these things? Editors, producers, journalists, New York Times, WAPO, Politico. Those are the people who are at the WZO, at the ZOA, at the World Jewish Congress, at the Jewish Leadership Conference, at the Shul, at the Jerusalem Post Conference. The people who are there work with CNN, work with MSNBC, work with NBC. And if you're there and you have credentials and you've been vetted and you've gone through the right organizations and you have some prestige because you're a fellow at some think tank, you might be able to talk to some of these editors, talk to some of these producers, some of these journalists. They'll ask you for a side quote. And then after getting to know you, they'll say, hey, you seem like a pretty intelligent guy. You seem well vetted. You seem like you've gone through the right channels. Let's exchange contacts. You can be my Middle East specialist for the 8 p.m. live show on MSNBC or NBC or Fox News or CNN or whatever. And then before they air you, before they bring you on the air, they have to vet you. They have to call people, say, hey, is this guy safe? Does this guy have a pass? Is he going to say anything that embarrasses the editors, embarrasses the stakeholders? Is he going to get the company in hot water? No. Okay, we'll bring him on. That's how this works. That's how the gatekeeping works. You can't beat that by burning down a synagogue. You have to build your own institutions, your own media platforms, your own policy summits, your own forums, your own conventions, host your own speaking engagements. You can't beat them by burning down a fucking synagogue. That's not how that works. They control access to the media. They control access to power. They control access to Hollywood. They can ruin your career in the blink of a fucking eye. Don't you get that? And all you do is play into their hands when you burn down a synagogue. And once again, I don't mean to be cynical here. It is sad, and it's unacceptable to ever do something like this. Do not do this ever. That's kind of a form of terrorism in a sense. If you're going to beat them, you have to be better at what they do than they are. It's that simple. Build your own institutions, attract your own investors. It might be difficult, it might take time, but with enough discipline and commitment, it'll work. 100%. There's already popular support for it. Don't tank that by burning down a synagogue. This is how it works. I'll give you guys a better example here. And you can really follow the chain. Take a guy like Jacob. Let's say there's a kid named Jacob. He's from New Jersey. He's Jewish. He wants to be a political commentator or some kind of prestigious pundit. What does Jacob have to do? Well, let's say he goes to Rutgers University in New Brunswick. He gets on campus. He wants to start advancing his career. He wants to start building connections. So he'll join Hillel International, which is a Jewish organization. It's dedicated to enculturating Jewish students, making them proud of their Jewish identity, giving them birthright to Israel, teaching them about Jewish history, getting them connected and networked, helping combat anti-Semitism. That's what Hillel International is for. It was established in 1923. So let's say he goes to New Brunswick. He joins Hillel International. He networks with other Jewish students. Then what? You rub shoulders with the right people. You talk to some people. You talk to the faculty. Maybe they'll hook you up with some kind of leadership program. So then you go to a leadership program. You go to the Leslie Wexner Foundation program. And you spend a year or two in it. You learn about being a leader. You learn about how to be an advocate for the Jewish community. You build a resume. You learn about Middle East history. You take some courses on the Middle East. Now you have Hillel Organization alumni. Now you have alumni from this leadership program. And you also have Middle East specialists on your resume. Now what do? If you're Jacob? Then you'll go to some ZOA conference, some World Zionist Organization conference. You'll meet think tanks or directors of think tanks. You'll meet politicians. You'll meet ambassadors. You'll meet powerful academics, influential people. You'll shake hands. You'll network. You'll get contacts, all these sorts of things. And then maybe you go through another program. And then after you go through another leadership program or whatever, or you go to another conference or you give a speech somewhere at the ZOA, maybe you'll attract attention from somebody who works at the Atlantic Council or the Council on Foreign Relations. They'll offer you a job. They'll offer you an opportunity. They'll give you a fellowship. Then you'll work at that think tank for a little while. You'll build an even stronger resume. And then at that point, you're in it. You're in it. You have enough credentials on your resume to start a career in punditry as a pro-Israel advocate. That's how this works. That's how this works. So if you want to defeat that, you have to do something similar, but with a different ideology. You have to vet them using different organizations, different initiatives. That's how all of this works. And if you want to beat them, you got to be better. And that's just what it is. Because now you have Shabbos Kestenbaum, and I saw this clip on Twitter. You have Shabbos Kestenbaum saying we need to start throwing people in jail for anti-Semitism. That's where this is going. Don't you get it? They're going to start passing anti-Semitism hate speech laws. That's what they're pushing for because they can feel the ground slipping out from underneath them. They're panicking. And like I said, we should not harass. We should not hurt. Don't ever do that. That is evil and heinous. That's not okay. Just understand the system. Understand this Zionist industrial complex. It doesn't have to be this big conspiracy. There's organizations. There's names. There's powerful people who sit on the boards. Who's at the board of the World Jewish Congress? It's Ronald S. Lauder. It's David Rothschild. And it's two other Jewish women. Who runs the World Zionist Organization? The two presidents are Jews, or the two directors or the two chairmen are Jews. What about the ZOA? The president is Jewish. You have all these organizations. They start all these initiatives. They start all these campus groups. They vet people. They groom people. They enculturate people, indoctrinate people. They get them plugged in with these circles, with these think tanks, with people in the media. Shake hands, you get an opportunity. It's all one big club. It's all one big Zionist social club. And the people funding all of it are the billionaire Jews at the top. It is so simple. It is not more complicated than that. It isn't some big conspiracy. It isn't some weird tinfoil hat shit. That's not what this is. It's very obvious how this works. You can name the organizations. You can identify the student body. You can name the initiatives. You can go to the leadership conferences. It is so obvious. And this is the last thing I want to show you guys before I get out of here. It's the last thing I want to show you guys because this is fascinating, truly. Let's take a look at this. Look at this. I'm going to show you guys an image here from Forbes Israel. So this is Forbes Israel. It says the world's Jewish billionaires 2025. So this is not some weird conspiracy theory website. And this is straight from Forbes Israel. And what does it say on this map? It says, where do the Jewish billionaires live? 163 in the United States, 1 in Colombia, 9 in Canada, 9 in Brazil, 2 in Spain, 7 in France, 9 in the UK, 2 in Switzerland, 3 in Ukraine, 21 in Russia, 39 in Israel, 1 in Cyprus, 1 in Eswatini, 6 in Australia, 1 in Hong Kong. So you have Jewish billionaires in every single continent on Earth. In North America, in Latin America, in Europe, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Australia. You have Jewish billionaires living everywhere. And of course they pool their resources to advance the interests of Israel. Of course. You think this is some major conspiracy? Of course not. China doesn't have any Jewish billionaires. They have 1 in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is not really, it's not the same as China. It's a little bit different. I think it was a former British colony. So here you have it. Now, which country has the most Jewish billionaires? The United States, 163. Now, you think there's 163 Jewish billionaires in America just by coincidence? Of course not. You think there's all these Jewish billionaires across the world by coincidence? Of course not. I don't believe that for a second. So there you have it. Understanding how this works. They have a lot of power and a lot of control, straight up. And if you want to beat them, you got to be better. That's just what it is. Trust me, these people are pushing for anti-Semitism hate laws. Do not give them a pretext under any circumstances. Anyways, with that being said, that's all I have to say. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share, and until further ado, I'm out. Peace.